What's up, guys? I'm coming at you with a little bit different video today. This is actually based on a tag. I have recently had the privilege of having Ashley Hart's Reading join a part of our bookish community, and she had recently been in a book-related tag and had mentioned that anyone could kind of pick it up and run with it. So I actually messaged her personally and I said, would you mind if I took this tag and ran with it? And she was like, absolutely, make it yours, go for it. And that was so sweet of her. And so without further ado, let's get into this little bookish tag. So without saying too much more, this is basically just some questions in regards to the books that I like, what kind of keeps me ticking, what are my go-to authors, etc. So I hope you guys enjoy. For those of you that are new here, my name is Jaya. I put out videos every Wednesday and Sunday on usually bookish related content, sometimes with a little random smattering of other non-bookish content such as travel and bags and things like that. But I would say about solid 90 to 95% of the channel does revolve around books. So when I saw this bookish tag, I was like, let's do it. For those of you that are returning, thank you once again for being here. It means the absolute world to me to be building this bookish community with you guys. And if I did not tag you in this, then please consider this an open tag. I would love for everyone to share this information, and definitely message or add in your description box my channel as well, so I can come check out your answers, because that's the beauty of community, is that we all get to share our thoughts and get to know each other a little bit. So without further ado, let's get into the questions. The first question is, what's an unpopular book opinion or preference that you have? So again, this is supposed to be an unpopular preference, so many people may not agree with me, and I'm okay with that. I do think this is unique to me, and I think each of us are unique snowflakes in our own way, and we add something different to the table. So with my cookie being a little bit misshapen in the jar, the things that I would say bother me is sometimes I do find that the audiobook is better than reading the physical book. I'm a big fan of physical books. I love collecting special editions. I love the feel of the book in my hand, the pages, all of it. But sometimes there's something about an audiobook where when you're in a reading slump, or you're on the go, or you're just not able to get into the mood, or you can't really relate to the characters, an audiobook has a way of just grounding you and pulling you into the book, or at least me, it pulls me into the book. And it allows me to feel each character just a little bit more and kind of put myself into their mindset, which then allows me to enjoy the book and appreciate it a little bit more. Sometimes one of my favorite ways to read is to actually have all of my senses being a part of the reading. So I like to light a candle that kind of reminds me of the book genre. I like to have the audiobook going in my ears, so I'm listening and I'm processing what's going on in the book. I have the physical book in my hand and I'm reading along. And that way, all of my different senses are basically in tune with that book. A classic example of this is Harry Potter. I love rereading the Harry Potter books. I have so many different versions of these books. I have special editions of these books. I have paperbacks that have been read so many times the spines have fallen apart. I have British editions, and I have all the hardback original editions that came out in the United States. I have all of the audiobooks. I have it on e-reader. And the thing I love about it is that Harry Potter to me is an experience. As you can see with my sweater that says it's mimosa, not mosa, in relationship to the Wingardium Leviosa situation that was happening in the movie. But the thing is, like, Harry Potter for me is an experience. So it doesn't matter whether I'm watching the movies, physically reading it, like, I need to be in the zone. And sometimes the audiobooks are just so good. They have just been narrated by the perfect person, and they are beautiful to listen to. And sometimes that is my favorite way of consuming the book. Another book opinion or preference that I have that may not be received with a bunch of support and might cause some controversy is that I really tend to struggle with self-help books. I know that they have beautiful messages, and I know many of them are teaching us habits that can actually make wonderful changes in our life, but I find them oftentimes to be very preachy. Unfortunately, I am also the type of person where I've realized I enjoy my independence and I like going through a journey on my own. So when someone tells me that it's their way or the highway, I find myself running in the opposite direction. I also think a lot of times there's too many examples of the same point, and it almost becomes a little redundant for me. Now, that's not to say that these books don't have a lot of value value and that some of them can't be beneficial. Maybe it's just that I haven't found the right author for myself. Classic example of this would be Atomic Habits. I think Atomic Habits overall is a great book, but I do feel like at certain portions it was really, really preachy, and that got to me. So that's just something that I struggle with. And I, in general, tend to navigate more towards fiction, and the reason is I want to escape my real life when I go into a book. The last thing I want is to sit down to read and enjoy myself and be lectured to. The other thing that I would say that people may come at me for is smut. So here's the thing. I think well-placed smut in books is okay. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think sometimes it's kind of nice to get to a point where the characters have been building and building and building and the enemies finally become lovers or whatever it might be. And that is a closing scene. But the banter, the character angst, the growth of the two characters getting us to that point is what I'm actually there for. That's the meat of the book to me. And this is just, the peak of the mountain that we hit and we move forward. I feel like nowadays it's the first and foremost thing in so many books, and it drives me insane. Classic example of this would be Zodiac Academy. I think the Zodiac Academy books are phenomenal. I think they're written really well. The writing I would say could be slightly better, but I do think the stories get better and better and better. The character development is great, and I overall enjoyed the books, but the Ruthless Boys series, which is the pre-series to the Zodiac Academy series, has so much smut in it without any real plot that I feel like sometimes the smut overtakes the plot. And that's when I'm like, I don't see the point of reading this book. So I do think that as it's become more acceptable for smut to be in books, it's almost like that has been the primary focus and target, especially with dark fantasy and dark romance. And I do struggle with that because sometimes I'm like, I just want a nice love story. I'm not saying it can't be there. That is not what I'm saying at all. I just don't think it has to be the main focus. Please don't come at me with pitchforks. I promise I have nothing against it. I just think it's a little overdone. How has my reading changed over the years is the second question, and if so, how? I would say that for the most part, my reading has actually stayed pretty much the same. I haven't noticed too much of a shift or difference in my reading style, my reading capacity, or anything like that since I finished, I want to say senior year of high school. I was in AP English classes in 11th and 12th grade, and I think it really shifted the way I looked at books and I analyzed books, and I think it also allowed me to see the ways that books actually have a way of interpreting and creating environments for you to safely explore different facets of the human mind, society as a whole. It's just a very safe sphere to explore human emotions. And I think that's how I kind of go towards all books. I also love the fact that books are a realm of imagination, which means that whatever's being put on the page, particularly with fiction, is a creation of a piece of art by someone based on their life experiences. And I think it's very fascinating that whether it be music or a painting, we can appreciate that everyone sees something different. It's the truth with books too. And I think that's what I love about books. I think the way in which my reading taste has changed over the years is I have become more open to certain genres than I was previously. For example, I do find myself enjoying contemporary fiction and sci-fi a little bit more. I have more appreciation for what can be written in those books. Previously, I would say I would primarily read fantasy or romance, but I do think now I'm enjoying the thriller and the dystopian and all that kind of stuff. It's hard for me to say that those were not present in my past as well, because books like Ender's Game or The Story of Asher Lev, or The Life of Asher Lev, whatever that book was called, I can't remember now. I read it back in 11th grade. Great Expectations, these classics, like those have all been a part of my reading journey ever since high school. I even remember reading plays and thoroughly enjoying them, whether it be, Agamemnon or other Greek, tragedies, or it was Shakespearean in nature. I enjoyed those too. I think for me, it has to be the right book at the right time and the right genre at the right time. And that was the thing in the past. Whereas now I feel like I'm open to exploring new books and new genres and not necessarily writing off authors or books just on a one-off. So that's how I would say my reading has changed. I'm also noticing that I'm enjoying classics a little bit differently. I'm enjoying certain books a little bit differently because I just have a different perspective on life in my 30s than I did when I was 16. So for example, rereading some of the Jane Austen books, now I can appreciate a lot more of the satire and kind of what she may have been going through in that societal period of time that pushed her to write the novels with such caricatured people as she did, with such commentary on society, without ousting herself as being this intellectual in a society that didn't allow women to have those rights, right? I think I can appreciate that more now in my 30s than I could when I was 16. When I was 16, it was just a funny romance to read, you know? So that's, I think, another component that's changed. The next question is, what genres pull you out of a reading slump every time? Now, this one I think is a little bit more tricky. I wouldn't say that there's a specific genre that pulls me out of a reading slump, but I have found that in general, if I can get a good thriller or a good romance that has me feeling uplifted or has me feeling involved in the story somehow, like trying to solve the murder, that tends to pull me a little bit more out of a reading slump. I also feel like rereading a favorite book can always help, whether that be Harry Potter or whether that be a Stuart Turton book or whether that be, a different author that I may have loved in the past. I do find that rereads can sometimes make a huge difference and just kind of reset the slate and remind me of why I started reading in the first place. And then another thing that tends to pull me out of my slumps is a good old book release. When an author, a favorite author in particular, releases a new book, you better bet, doesn't matter if I'm sitting on my butt, I will find a way to the bookstore to get that book in my hand and sit down and read it. And I will push myself to finish that book. If I'm finding that I'm not enjoying it, I will oftentimes restart the book and try to create the mood for myself. That puts me into a reading place. But typically, those are the things that work for me. The last thing that I would say really affects my reading mood, especially if I'm in a slump, is a change in season. I feel like I'm definitely a seasonal mood-based reader. So when the weather is, pulling on my heartstrings to read and pushing me towards certain genres, that is definitely a great motivator for me to get out of my book slumps as well. So specifically in terms of genres, probably a good thriller or a good romance, but also a favorite reread as well as environmental changes can help pull me out of a slump. The next question I had is, who are your auto-buy authors, the ones you trust no matter what? Now, here's the thing. I couldn't narrow it down to just one or two. I have quite a few, so bear with me here because we're going to go through them. Sarah J. Maas, I would say, as well as Jennifer Lynn Barnes, are some, and Carrie Maniscalco are kind of my go-to fantasy authors. I feel like no matter what they put out, it'll be on my shelf and I will be reading it. I have been thoroughly enjoying them. I would also say that specifically Rebecca Yarros, only in the context of Fourth Wing. I am waiting for the rest of those Empyrean books to come out. And I understand the second and the third book have been a little bit slow, but with it being a 5-book series, I feel like that was kind of anticipated. And I think this fourth book is going to be even more information heavy, and it's not going to necessarily be the oomph that people might be looking for, but I do think it's going to answer a lot of key questions and keep us going on that journey to help our characters be in a position to be ready in the 5th book for the final battle. So definitely love her books in that regard, but specifically for fantasy, I would say Sarah J. Maas for sure, Carrie Maniscalco for sure, and Jennifer Lynn Barnes. Although she doesn't do quite fantasy, actually, it's probably more contemporary fiction, so scratch that. She's still on the list, but she would just be a different genre. So let's talk about her genre. She's going to be young adult, more, I would say contemporary fiction, thriller side of things. She likes to write a nice little mystery, young adult novel set in modern times. Characters are usually in their teens, but I do love the sleuthiness of the characters and I love the way that they think. So definitely she is on the list for me. In terms of thrillers, kind of sci-fi, dystopian, all that kind of stuff, I would say for sure Riley Sager and Stuart Turton are on that list for me. I find those two authors to be phenomenal. I don't think I've ever read a book that I've truly hated by either of those authors. Stuart Turton's 3 books that he's written, 2 of them are 5 stars for me. One of them is a 4.5. And then Riley Sager, pretty much every single thriller mystery I have read by Riley Sager, I have enjoyed. Not every single one necessarily has been a 5-star, but nothing has been below 3. And I do enjoy the story and the environment that have been created in every single one of his books. I think as far as romance goes, my go-to authors would be Lucy Score, Emily Henry, Christina Loren, and then, of course, Abby Jimenez and Taylor Jenkins Reid. These 5 authors, I think, are just absolutely phenomenal authors. While I realize Taylor Jenkins Reid kind of branches between romance and contemporary fiction, I do feel that she can still be grouped in with them. But I think those authors just do a tremendous job of writing a romance and a love story, and it truly just makes you feel for every single one of the characters, and I love that. Going into contempt fiction with Taylor Jenkins Reid also being in that list, I would also add into that list R.F. Kuang and Frederick Bachman. I think Frederick Bachman's writing is some of the most beautiful writing I have ever written. He wrote the book A Man Called Ove, he wrote Anxious People, he wrote Beartown, and he recently released a book called My Friends, which is on my TBR. I have just bought it today. I have not read the book yet, but I've heard amazing things about this book. And there's just something about his writing that I think is absolutely phenomenal. Also, I think R.F. Kuang has done a phenomenal job with all of her books as well. And her genres haven't always been in alignment. They all have little essences of one another in their books, but really for the most part, she's talking about the human journey, the human mind. At least that's how I interpret it. And again, the beauty of books is everyone interprets it a little bit differently. But I have found that her writing is very profound, and I do thoroughly enjoy her writing as well. And I'm very much looking forward to Catabasis, her new book that she'll be releasing soon. Next question. How many chances do you give an author before you decide you're done with the author? I would say 2 to 3 books. I have found that a lot of authors, the first book is not the best. And as you keep reading their books, you realize they're a lot better as they continue writing and they understand the writing process. And I think a clear-cut example of this is Sarah Dessen. Sarah Dessen was a young adult author that I used to follow. She's still around. She's not really writing anymore. She hasn't published in a while, I think ever since COVID hit. But pre-COVID, she had about 10 books that she released, and I have every single one of them. I can honestly say her first 2 books I struggled with a little bit, but the rest of her books, loved them. Leanne Moriarty is another one of these. Leanne Moriarty used to be one of those authors that was on my must-buy read list, but recently I found that her books haven't quite hit me in the same way. They're still excellent. They just haven't hit me in the same way. But her books are also those books where the first few books were the best, and her most recent books, again, are not the best, but some of the books in between were so good that it forgives everything else for me. And the examples of those would be The Husband's Secret, Big Little Lies, and 9 Perfect Strangers, I think, was excellent. So there's a lot, and they're all just so interesting. I love her writing style. I love the way she thinks. I think Apples Never Fall was also another excellent book by her. So again, yeah, just have to give an author 2 or 3 books, I think, because writing changes throughout time, characters change, series end, new books begin. So there's so many different ways that an author can change up the writing style. So something to consider. Do I have any reading rituals and things I would like to do or listen to while reading? Abso-freaking-lutely. I would say I love having a beverage on hand, either hot or cold, depending on the vibes. I also love to have a candle lit typically when I'm reading, just for a sensory addition to the reading experience. I love having a nice cozy nook space. I have a egg chair in the living room that I love sitting in. Our couch is absolutely perfect. It's in the corner. We have some strong lights behind the TV that I can turn on that just gives me a mood. And then I also have a record player that I sometimes play when I'm in the living room reading. I also love my little reading chair here. I have my little stuffed animal and my blanket and the nice little cozy reading lamp. So I love that. Basically, I need a nook space that I can go cuddle up and be a cuddle bug and just read in. I also like having a warm cat nearby. I have 2 cats. I love them to death. They're both adorable. One is a black cat named Bella Luna. She's not the most cuddly cat, but she is very, very loving and very friendly. And then I have Minerva Taco, who is a tabby cat, and she is an absolute cuddle bug. She's terrified of everyone and everything, but she loves to cuddle with me and my husband. And so I like having her nearby when I read, because it's just nice to have a nice, cozy, warm body on you that's also purring and just so loving and just sets the mood. I also really enjoy just having a cozy blanket. I think it really helps to have that blanket on hand. So if you do get hot, you have something to throw over you, then you're not getting distracted. And then if you're overwhelmingly hot, you can always pull it off. And then last but not least, depending on whether I'm doing an audiobook or a physical book, with a physical book, I do like to have a YouTube video playing in the background that's just ambience noise and music. So it'd be like a jazz setting in the forest, or a nice little 1 hour long video of a cozy little coffee shop. So just setting a vibe is really important to me. If I am enjoying my book via audio, however, none of the things I said above apply. In that case, I just want to be in a nice setting where I'm walking and I have a beautiful scene to look at. So like walking by the ocean, or going to a cute little coffee shop and having my audiobook going while I'm journaling or something like that, or going on a nice, beautiful walk in general, even around the neighborhood, just listening to my book. Those are always great ways to consume a book for me. How far do you read before deciding to DNF a book? I think for me in particular, it's about 50 to 75% of the book. It's very hard for me to do a hardcore DNF quickly on a book. I really do struggle with it. Usually once I start a book, I'm going to finish the book, even if I know I hate it. Soft DNFs, however, are a little bit different. That's usually between 3 to 5 chapters, and that's just an indication that I may not be in the right mood to read that book now. Doesn't mean I'm never going to touch it or I'm never going to read it again. But a true DNF, which I've probably done maybe 3 times in my entire life, 50 to 75% of the book is usually consumed before I decide to make that decision. Do I ever find myself mimicking the characters' facial expressions while reading? 110%. I feel like I put myself in the position of being the character's best friend, or their conscience, or, their partner in crime. Or sometimes I picture myself as the main character themselves. And so I am feeling every single emotion this character is feeling. I have literally been found sobbing, laughing, crying, I already said that, giggling, like all kinds of things as I'm reading books, because shouting sometimes at the book, because I truly put myself in the mindset of the character. All the books that I read really do affect me, which is also probably why I haven't read certain books, even though I know they're incredible. Like Demon Copperhead, I have not read, I never will read. A Little Life, I will never read. Not because I don't think those are amazing works of art, but because they will destroy me, soul and body. So 100%, yes, I do see myself mimicking characters and just enjoying the book with them. Last but not least, rereading books, yes or no? And for me, it depends. For example, I reread all the Harry Potter books every year, with the exception of the past 2 years, just because moving, work, life changes, things like that, haven't had the opportunity to just sit down and read them, but fully plan on reading them this fall when the season is changing and school is restarting. Harry Potter is just a go-to must for me. So love rereading the Harry Potter books. Have been doing it since I first discovered the books when I was 7 or 8 years old. So it's a tradition that will continue to live on and probably will pass on to my kids should I have any. Other books, I do tend to reread favorite authors, but I wouldn't say I reread the book from start to finish. So page cover to page end, I don't know if I'll read it in that way, but I definitely like going back and revisiting books and reading favorite scenes from books, favorite moments from books, with the exception of Harry Potter. Those I have reread completely. The other time I will absolutely sit down and do a reread from start to finish is when a new book in a series comes out and I haven't had a chance to remember what happened in the previous books in quite some time. For example, the 3rd book of the Empyrean series, Onyx Storm, released a few months ago in March, and I was gung-ho on reading this book, but I had forgotten so much of what happened in Fourth Wing and Iron Flame that I did do a page cover to back cover reread of the other 2 books before I read Onyx Storm, and I do think that helped. So my answer is yes. I think it just depends on the situation. Would I reread every single book I've ever read? Absolutely not, no. And last but not least, I was requested to tag some fellow booktubers to keep the confessions going. And I absolutely have some names down below. So definitely check that out. And I hope to see you guys all participating in this tag if you do have a YouTube channel. I know I'm relatively new on YouTube, so I haven't had the chance to get to know every single one of you yet. But some of my frequent commenters and some of the people who have been very inspiring to me in this bookish community, I definitely do want to do a shout out to them, and their names are linked in the description box. So I look forward to seeing how you respond to the book tag. And for those of you that made it this far, thank you so much for watching. That's all I have today in regards to the book tag and the questions. Thank you again, Ashley Hart's Reading, for allowing me to be a part of this book tag and for, subscribing to the channel and being so supportive. It means the world to me. Thank you to this beautiful community for everything you guys do, for all of your support, for your time, because time is a precious commodity. And the fact that you're taking time to spend it with me and to talk about all these books means the world to me. So thank you, thank you. And for those of you that are new here who like bookish related content, and if you feel like, you want to read with me, check out the TBRs, definitely see some series reviews, and just get a vibe for what other people are doing, then you are in the right place. And definitely consider hitting that subscribe button and that notification bell. I put out videos every Wednesday and Sunday, as I mentioned before, and I would love to see you again. And in finale, all my lovelies, is I would say, wherever you are, whether it's morning, evening, or night, I hope you're having a wonderful, blessed day. I wish you all joy and happiness and peace. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye, guys.